Hi, so welcome to today's webinar. My name's Melanie Brimblecombe and I'm a CBT case manager for IPRS Health. And today our webinar is on Introduction to Mindfulness Skills and Workshops. So what we're going to look at today for our agenda is what mindfulness is and also what stress is. And then we're going to look at how mindfulness can help us. And within that, we've got a sitting meditation, which will be our first skill. We're then going to look at automatic pilot and what that means. We're going to look at how we can be more mindful. We're going to look at the two different modes of mind that incorporate how we are and how we can change that to be more mindful. We're also going to look at our second skill of the day, which are thoughts are not facts. We're then going to look at our third skill, which is the 3-stage breathing space. And at the end, there are some summaries and references for you to take away. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to look at is what is mindfulness. By definition, mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. And this was something that came about from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is the creator of mindfulness. So, what is stress? So, stress is a natural and physical reaction to both good and bad experiences, which might be a little bit of something that you've not really thought about before, because we actually do perceive stress as something that's negative for us. So it can actually be beneficial to your health and safety, and we will look at some examples of that in a minute. It can be triggered by everyday pressures of work and home and our responsibilities. And negative life events that we have can elevate stress for longer than needed, and this is when it becomes more of a problem. And chronic stress, as we will see on the next slide, can be detrimental to your health and well-being. So what do I mean by it can be good and it can be bad? So we're going to look at a couple of examples here. So on this grid, we've got the first top one, which is the area we're going to look at, which is the central nervous system and the endocrine systems. Now, in the short term, we would use the fight or flight, and this can be useful to us. However, in the long term, if we were continuously stimulating this part of our bodies, we can suffer with irritability, anxiety, depression, headaches, and insomnia. And it's probably one of the most common effects you would feel from long-term stress, more consciously than the others. So let's look at the short term and how that can actually be good to us, because obviously the long term is quite obviously a negative effect. Short term, the fight or flight system is something that prepares us to perform in a situation. So if you think about a Formula One driver, he's probably in the fight or flight mode because he needs to be able to make quicker connections with his brain. He also needs to be able to respond a lot quicker, and he needs that adrenaline and extra energy to get him to perform in that time. So what I would like to look at is basically if he was not in that system, he would be more sluggish. He wouldn't respond as fast and he wouldn't be as pumped energy wise. Think about this maybe as a job interview. In the fight or flight mode, we're set to perform. So our brains are firing the information, the communication happens a lot quicker. So when you're being asked questions in an interview, you can actually respond a lot more quicker and get the questions that you need, the answers to the questions that you're being asked a lot quicker. This can be good in exams, all kinds of situations where you need to perform with more energy and more cognitive awareness. However, like I say, the negative effects of that is if you're continuously in fight or flight mode, it will have a negative effect on your health long term. Another one that's quite interesting is the digestive system. So if we're stressed continuously long term, the sugar that is actually released during the fight or flight mode to give us that extra boost of energy, if the sugar is continuously being produced, it's not reabsorbed into the body, and this can actually cause a nasty side effect of getting type 2 diabetes. So how can mindfulness help with all of this? So what we're going to look at is how we can respond rather than react to stress. This is the main aim of what we're looking at today. So if we're reacting to stress, whether it's actual or perceived stress, this will generate physiological reactions, which is obviously the fight or flight, and behaviours that in turn generate more stress and stressful reactions. Whereas if we respond, what we learn through using mindfulness is that we learn to respond in a way of our choice rather than actually in a knee-jerk fashion. Now, I've also thought this was quite interesting to put on. So is what else can mindfulness do for me? So it's got a lot of scientific benefits, and the research for mindfulness is just continuing to emerge. So some of the things that have actually been well supported is that it can grow the area of our brain responsible for learning and memory. So when you think about the kind of conditions and the deterioration that happens as we get older, people think that we learn less, when actually through the use of mindfulness, actually we can continue expanding our memory and keeping it maintained and learn. It can also reduce fear and increase the rational side of our brain. So this can give us a steadier mind. So rather than actually being sort of very hyper vigilant and scared of everything, what we're actually learning to do is to maintain a steadier state of mind in these situations, which helps us cope better. It's connected to lowering depression scores, which obviously is very sort of self-explanatory. But obviously, the more time we spend in a mindful way or meditating, we're spending less time in the part of the brain that is responsible for rumination, and more time in connecting to the area responsible for sensing the world. So when we think of that, we're actually training our mind to be in a more helpful part of our brain. It's also showing growth in the areas of the brain connected to empathy and compassion. Now, when we think about that, empathy and compassion doesn't just mean that we should feel what others are feeling. It's actually about kindness to ourselves as well. So when we're actually feeling stressed or negative, we'll always kind of go to that, oh, well, I should try harder, I'm not good enough, all these kind of negative self-perceptions. But actually, by increasing our empathy and compassion, what we are doing is being a little bit more kinder to ourselves and hopefully reducing the amount of self-criticism that we produce. Another one is that it thickens the cortex of the brain, and this will help us reduce activity in the default mode network, the DMN. Now, this is what's called the monkey mind. So if you imagine when you get into bed at night and your eyes are closed, so you've got no visual stimulus, you've got nothing going on in the background, so there's no noise, so there's no sound stimulus. Basically, all there is you and your mind. This is when the mind's capacity is increased in chatter. So it's not concentrating on all the things outside of the body and processing that. So the actual capacity it's got to just think of random stuff, it will. So we call it monkey mind, because it's that needless chatter that goes on in our mind. So by meditating and practicing mindfulness, we're actually helping to reduce and quieten and make the default mode network more quieter. So the actual skills might sound simple. So people just say, oh, it's just sitting there and breathing. But actually, it's quite different to how our minds normally behave and the actual ways that we look at things. And it does take a lot of practice. It's not something you can just develop after today's webinar. It's something you need to take away and develop in your private time. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to do a sitting meditation. Now, there are some instructions on the actual audio file itself. However, I'd like you to get yourself sat in a comfortable position. I'd like you to keep your spine erect and your shoulders dropped. Close your eyes if it feels comfortable to do so, although you don't need to. So if you're not closing your eyes, just let your glance fall onto a spot on the floor. And then what we're trying to do is to bring awareness to our body sensations by focusing on the sensations of touch, contact, and pressure in your body. If when you're breathing, it will ask you to bring attention to your belly. If you feel that you're struggling to do that or concentrate on that, sometimes people like to put their hands on their belly so they can feel that rise and that fall. And then keep focusing on the breath and try to be with each one. Okay, and every time you notice your mind has wandered, because it will happen quite a lot, just notice it and then just come to refocus back on the breath. Okay, enjoy.
Mindfulness of sounds and thoughts. Aware of the breath as it moves in and as it moves out of the body. feeling the sensation of slight stretching in the abdomen as the breath comes in, the sense of gentle release as it goes out. And aware of the body as a whole, feeling the sensations of touch or pressure where your body is in contact with the floor and whatever you're sitting on. Aware of sensations in the hands and shoulders. Whatever's here. And gently attending to the field of sensations throughout the body, from one moment to the next. Aware of the breath, aware of the body. Now, allowing the focus of your awareness to shift from sensations in the body to hearing. Bringing your attention to your sense of sound and allowing that awareness to open and expand. Just being receptive to sounds as they arise. And there's no need here to go searching for sounds or listening out for particular sounds. Instead, as best you can, simply opening your mind so that it is receptive to sounds from all directions. Becoming aware of obvious sounds and of more subtle sounds. Aware of the space between sounds. Aware of silence. And just being aware here of sounds as sounds. Noticing the tendency we all have to interpret sounds, to attach stories and meanings to them. And instead, as best you can, just becoming aware of their sensory qualities. Their changing pitch, their loudness, their rhythm and duration. And whenever you notice that your awareness is no longer focused on sounds in the moment, just gently acknowledging where your mind has moved to and retuning the awareness back to sounds as they arise and pass away from one moment to the next. Sounds arise, they remain for a time, and they pass away. And when it's right for you now, letting go of awareness of sounds and instead beginning to let thoughts become center stage. And in the same way that sounds are something we experience in our minds, so too thoughts are just experiences in the mind. And just as sounds arise, remain for a time, and then pass away, so too thoughts arise, develop, and pass away. And there's no need here to try to make thoughts come or go. Just letting them arise naturally, as they will. And if there seem to be no thoughts, then just letting that be as it is. But like clouds in the sky, thoughts arise. They drift through the mind, and they pass away again. And clouds may be dark and stormy, or light and airy, but however they are, just letting them arise and pass. And you may find other analogies helpful here. You might see your thoughts like the carriages of a railway train passing through a station. But it's not your train, and you don't have to get onto it. You can just be content to watch it go by. And if you find yourself swept onto the train, by some magical means you can always conjure a station and just get off again. Or maybe your thoughts are like leaves on a stream, just floating downstream while you're sitting on the bank watching. And if any thoughts come to you with intense feelings or emotions, pleasant or unpleasant, as best you can, just noting their emotional charge and intensity and letting them be as they are. And if your mind becomes unfocused and scattered, gets repeatedly drawn into the drama of your thinking and imaginings, just coming back to the breath, using that as an anchor to gently steady your focus before going back to watching thoughts. Just letting thoughts arise, linger, and pass.
Okay, so how did we all find that? Okay, what we're going to do now is just bring yourself back to the room. Just take a moment to refocus. And what we're going to look at is basically a reflection. So now that we've done that lovely meditation, what I'd like to find out and for you to have a think about is, how was that for you? How did it feel? What did you notice? Kind of really think about in them 10 minutes what you kind of focused on. How often did your mind wander? Did you manage to bring it back? And really think about how it felt within your body, in your mind. And each time you do this skill, so the link is obviously there for you to practice in your own time, and the audio link is a free link. Okay, each time you do that, the important thing is to reflect on it. Maybe keep a diary about what you're doing each time, so you can see the natural progression of how your practice is going as well. So just take a moment now to jot down how it was for you and what you noticed, so you've got your first log. Okay, so now that we've completed that, what we're going to look at is automatic pilot. So this might be familiar to quite a few of you, and we're probably all very guilty of it, probably on a daily basis. But basically, when we're in automatic pilot, it's when we behave without being really aware of what's going on around us. So, for instance, when we're driving, who out there who's drivers actually think about what pedal your foot is touching? I know if I actually think about my feet and which pedal I've got to press, I have a little mini panic of like, oh, which foot is the brake? And I kind of get mixed up because my body knows how to drive, and my feet almost drive on a subconscious level. Obviously, my mind is focusing on the road, but my feet are actually being subconsciously controlled. So that is an example of automatic pilot. You could be sitting there having your lunch and thinking about something completely different and not even conscious of what you're eating. So this is an example of when the body is doing one thing whilst our mind is off doing something else. And it isn't intentional. It's called automatic, and it means what it says on the tin. It comes automatically to us. So for the majority of the time, the mind is passive and it allows itself to be caught by these thoughts, memories, plans, or feelings. So I just want you to think just for a few seconds now. Can you remember the last time this happened to you? Okay, so we know that sometimes we get caught up in the automatic pilot process. How can we be more mindful in our busy day-to-day lives to help combat this a little bit more? So a lot of people that I've taught mindfulness to will always have sort of the go-to reasons why they can't be more mindful. So, oh, well, I have no time to practice because obviously we've all got busy lives. Other barriers can be, oh, well, by the time I get to doing my practice and I've got that time, I'm too tired to practice. I don't have the privacy to practice. So all these kind of things that you do that you do in your lives on a daily basis can be a barrier to being mindful. However, you don't have to sit and meditate to be mindful, and you can do it pretty much on every activity you do in a day. So what I'd like you to do now is conduct an everyday activity and bring awareness to it. So if you're in a group, what I'd like you to do is to turn to the person sat next to you, either to your left or your right, and I would like you to ask that person what their name is and what their favourite food is. Now, what I don't want you to be doing is thinking about how you're going to answer when they ask the same to you. I want you to really look at that person, really listen to that person, and focus on every single movement and word that comes out of that person's mouth. And then I'd like you to switch and do the same. If you're on your own, I would like you to think about what obviously you know your name, but what your favorite food is and what that tastes like, but really sort of just focus on that one task, nothing else. Just take 30 seconds to do this. Okay, so let's all come back to the screen now. Okay, so when you've done that, obviously you've just practiced doing a bit of mindfulness in that moment. Okay, so it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just about being fully present. We can do this when we are brushing our teeth. We can, instead of when we're brushing our teeth, think about all the things that we've got to do that day, our to-do list, what we're having for lunch, who we're meeting for lunch, what we're cooking for tea tonight, what we're going to buy at the shops tonight when we're calling our way from home, what's on the TV tonight. All these kind of things are distracting your mind to be in a different place rather than actually concentrate on the task you're doing. That first sip of coffee, that bit of breakfast, sitting at your desk, eating your lunch while doing emails. Just do one activity per day and actually give your full attention to it. That way you're actually developing your mindfulness and working your brain out to be more mindful. And that is something you can incorporate very easily into your daily lives without finding barriers to why you can't do it. So let's have a look at the modes of mind now. So the doing mode of mind is a driven mode. It's goal orientated. It's like a problem solver. So we see we've got a task to do. We problem solve it based on how we've solved stuff like that before, how's the best way to do it, things that haven't worked. So we always look at the past and how that's helped us do it. So we're using our experience. And in mindfulness, that's okay if it's a problem that can be solved. So I've got a four sets of bricks and I need to build them into a tower. That's a problem. Think about how to solve it and solve it. Move on. We don't then go thinking about the 4 bricks for the rest of the day. However, when there is no resolution to a problem, we then go round and round and round and round trying to look for resolution. So an example of this would be maybe your relationship has come to an end and you're constantly thinking, well, why did they finish with me? Why did they do that? If you can't speak to that person, you're not going to get that answer. So it's going to continuously tick over and over in your mind. As well, when we think about things that don't have an answer, you're looking for something that isn't there. So the mind will continuously try to assess and problem solve something that can't be resolved. And that puts you in a vicious cycle. This then has negative effects on your emotions and can last the rest of the day. For instance, another example would be maybe road rage. You had something in the morning, you're really angry about it. Why did they do that? Why did they cut me up? Why didn't they indicate? And you're thinking about that for the rest of the day, and that then has a knock-on effect to how the rest of your day goes. Whereas the person who actually cut you up has forgotten about you, and they're not, you're not even in their mind. But you're left with the negative effects of being in this mode. So taking from that, it's good to be in it when you've got an actual real tangible problem to solve, but when you haven't got a tangible problem to solve, it becomes problematic. So what we look at is in a more being mode of mind. So this is completely the opposite of the doing mode of mind, which is what we've just looked at. It's not motivated to achieve any particular goals, and this has 2 implications for us because there's no need to constantly monitoring and evaluating how we're doing to meet these goals. Are we building them bricks? Are we doing what we need to be doing? And there's no need to emphasize any discrepancy-based processing, which basically means we're not going, oh, well, we're not doing good enough. We've not got the 4 bricks built. We've only got 3 bricks built. We're still not being good enough at doing this. So we just kind of accept and allow what's going on at the moment to happen. So therefore, we're in the present much of the time. And this mode of mind, you can think of, it's got nothing to do and nowhere to go. We're just being in that moment. We're just being in that moment where we're eating our crisps. We're just being in that moment where we're brushing our teeth. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Okay, so in the words of Cookie Monster, today me will live in the moment unless it's unpleasant, in which case me will eat a cookie. So if you can't be in the moment, I suggest you eat a cookie. Okay, so we're going to come on to another activity now where we're going to start developing our awareness of what's going on in our minds. So what I would like to do now is I'm going to read out some lines that will pop up on the screen. At the end of each line, what I'd like you to do is to think about the first image and or emotion that pops up in your mind at the end of each line. And I'd like you to hold on to them until the end so we can reflect on the process. Okay, here we go. So John was on his way to school. John was worried about maths class today. John was worried that he would not be able to control the class today. John was the janitor. Okay, so have a little think about what came up in your mind there and how obviously John may have changed in your mind from maybe being a child to a teacher to the janitor. Maybe he was different in age, looks, maybe different eras, all these different images that come up. Maybe you had shifting emotions, maybe based on experiences you had in your own lives, your children's lives, people that you know. All these kind of things are things that have happened in the past and we've got experience of, and we draw conclusions from that. So what the previous slide demonstrates is how we make something called implicit inferences, and we do that around the bare facts. It's almost like we're jumping to an assumption that John is a schoolboy, okay, where at the end we know that John was actually the janitor, and we're barely conscious that we do it because you've just done it now and made them inferences as we went along without knowing the full facts. So once the inference is made, we have an emotion that will follow close behind it. So when we think about thoughts, as soon as we have that thought pop in our head, the emotion will attach. Now, once the emotion attaches, if it's a negative emotion, this is when we can enter into that vicious cycle. So what we need to be doing is thinking of thoughts as objects of awareness. So we need to shift from relating from our thoughts, so making them inferences, but rather to our thoughts. So just being aware that they're there and just having them as objects of awareness rather than actually participating and being sort of getting yourself into that vicious cycle. So we're going to try that now. What we're going to do, we're going to go to the cinema. So I'd like you to all once again sit down. If you're not already sat, I'd like you to close your eyes if it feels comfortable to do so. And what I'd like you to do is to clear your mind and really focus 100% of yourself sitting in a cinema just by yourself with a black screen. If you need to imagine the curtains, the seats, how it feels to be in there, the silence, the sound, the temperature, everything like that. Just really sort of focus yourself of being in that cinema and that black screen. There's nothing on that screen. Okay, so now you have that black screen. What I'd like you to do is just allow the first thought to come into your mind. See the image on the screen, maybe the sounds, the emotions that you feel with that. And now what I'd like you to do is to focus back on that black screen again. So imagine yourself sat in the middle of the cinema by yourself, staring at that black screen. No thoughts, no nothing, just the black screen. Then what I'd like you to do is just allow another thought to come in and appear on that screen. Again, do exactly the same. See the image on the screen, any thoughts, emotions that attach with it. And then I'd like you to go back to the black screen again. Okay, so what we're doing there is we're developing our flexibility of mind, which allows us to shift between thoughts more quicker. It's a very good activity to practice, where you could just sit there and just actual practice swapping your thoughts in and out. This helps us to make thoughts more objects of awareness rather than absolute fact. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to do our third skill of the day, and this is called the 3-stage breathing space. Now, I'm not going to go through the actual stages. This is for your reference here on the PowerPoint, but there's 3 stages that we'll go through, and this is a very good skill to use if you're feeling quite stressed in the day. It helps you get back to a reset button so that you can then appraise the day in a lot more balanced way, less stressful, less anxiety, and able to help you process a lot better. Here we go.
taking a breathing space, making a definite change in your posture so that your posture embodies a sense of awakeness, a sense of dignity. And beginning step 1 by acknowledging what is going on in your body and mind right now. Not trying to change anything, but just opening to what is here. What thoughts are going through your mind? What feelings are around? Any sensations in your body? Seeing if it is possible to open to them all. And now, step 2. Narrowing the focus of attention down to the sensations of breathing. Wherever you feel the breath moving most strongly, focusing on that place. And with great precision, tuning in to the sensations of the in-breath for its full duration, and the out-breath for its full duration. And each time the mind slips away, bringing the attention back to this breath right now. And now step 3, broadening the focus of your attention around the breath to take in the whole body, the whole space that the body takes up, and becoming aware of all the sensations that there might be in the body, holding them in the spaciousness of bodily awareness, as if your whole body was breathing. And if there are any particular parts of the body where there are intense sensations, see if it is possible to open to these, perhaps guiding the breath into this place and allowing it to open and soften. And as we bring this 3-minute breathing space to a close, bringing this awareness, this sense of spaciousness into the next moments of your day.
Okay, so just take a moment to come back again. Focus back on the screen. Okay, so what we covered there was the 3-stage breathing space. Like I said before we started the audio track, it's very good if you're having quite a stressful day and things are building up and you can feel your muscles getting tenser, your neck maybe is hurting. It's really good to refocus because if you try to do too much in your stress, you end up getting not much done. So what I suggest you do is to learn the 3 stages. You can do this sat anywhere. You can do this sat at your desk. I often do it sometimes just to have a reset. So I can sit here and basically I'll just acknowledge what's going on at the moment. It's a simple question. So what's going on with me at the moment? What am I feeling? What kind of, what's going on in my body? And then what I will do, I'll gather myself together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus 100% on my breath. By doing that, I'm then clearing my mind and resetting what's going on. So all these kind of chaotic thoughts that I had in my mind before, I've cleared them out to focus 100% on just the breathing. Once you feel that you've got that down, it doesn't have to be a full minute. It could be 30 seconds if you need it. You just go with whatever feels right with yourself. Once you've got yourself reset, you then start to expand your awareness. And this means then sort of bringing yourself back to the room, expanding your awareness, the space that you're taking up, and then resetting yourself onto what you've got to do that day, but with a more balanced approach and not something that's not as negative that will affect your mental health or your well-being. Okay, so let's summarize. So first of all, we looked at obviously what mindfulness is and its benefits, and then we looked at stress and how we would manage that. Some of the core skills that we've learned today are thoughts are not facts. So that's Schoolboy John. We've looked at being mindful and how we can do that on a daily basis, either brushing our teeth, chatting to people, having our lunch. We looked at automatic pilot and how we can sometimes get caught up in all these different things without even being aware of it. We looked at the mode of mind, so the being and the doing mode of mind, and how the doing mode of mind can be useful if we've got a real tangible problem to solve, but how it can be unhelpful to us if the problem has no answer, and how we can just be in that moment. We've then looked at the sitting meditation, which was the 10-minute exercise we did at the beginning, which is a very good one to develop your mindfulness with when you have the time to sit down and meditate. And then we looked at the 3-minute breathing space, which is what you can do anywhere and everywhere. So the acknowledging, gathering, and then expanding your awareness out to help you manage stress in that moment better. And then at the end, I've popped some further resources for you to have a look at if you're interested more. There's also some links at the bottom there of some good mindfulness websites. So thank you very much for listening, and I wish you all a good day.